The hum of electric motors faded into silence as Elon Musk stepped out of his sleek black Tesla under a canopy of quiet stars. It was late, well past midnight, near the sprawling Tesla gigafactory on the outskirts of Austin, Texas. The air held a sharp winter chill, and a soft amber glow from the streetlights bathed the empty streets in a surreal stillness. Elon stretched slightly, the fatigue of a long day mingling with his habitual restlessness. It wasn't unusual for him to visit his factories unannounced at odd hours, his mind perpetually racing with ideas and possibilities. Tonight, though, his attention was drawn away from his grand visions by an unexpected sight. Under one of the lamps, an elderly man moved with quiet determination, a worn backpack slung over his shoulders. He was delivering packages, the kind small couriers handled late into the night to meet impossibly tight deadlines. His gait was slow, deliberate, yet laced with an air of dignity that belied his labor. Elon paused, watching the man for a moment. The silhouette revealed a wiry frame, his shoulders slightly hunched with age, yet his movements were steady as he shuffled forward. There was something oddly compelling about the way the man worked, completely immersed in his task as though each package carried the weight of a personal promise. What's his story? Elon wondered, curiosity nudging at him. He crossed the pavement, approaching the man with measured steps. The soft clack of his shoes broke the quiet rhythm of the night. The elderly man noticed and turned his head, his weathered face lit by the dim glow of the lamp. His eyes, though tired, held a spark of alertness and determination. "Late night for both of us, huh?" Elon said with a warm smile, his voice low but friendly. The old man paused briefly, tipping his cap politely. "Gotta do what you gotta do," he replied, his voice gravelly but kind, before returning to his task. But as Elon moved closer, something unexpected happened. The old man reached into his pocket for a clipboard, fumbling briefly, and dropped a peculiar object onto the pavement. It glimmered faintly under the light, a small brass medallion, its surface etched with intricate patterns and symbols, technical, mathematical, almost arcane. Elon's sharp eyes narrowed as intrigue sparked within him. He crouched to pick it up, holding the object up to the light. This isn't something you see every day," he said. The old man froze, his posture stiffening as a hint of nervousness crossed his face. "That's nothing," he said quickly, reaching for it. But Elon wasn't so easily convinced. Something about the object, and the old man's reaction, hinted at a story far deeper than mere late-night package deliveries. "Care to explain?" Elon asked gently, curiosity mingling with empathy in his tone. Before the old man could answer, the faint sound of a distant truck interrupted the quiet, but the night seemed heavier now, weighed down by the unspoken mystery hanging between them. Chapter 2: The Old Man's Story. The old man hesitated, his fingers brushing against the medallion in Elon's hand before retreating. For a moment he looked as if he might bolt, but then he sighed, his shoulders sinking under a weight that no backpack or night shift could rival. "That medallion," he began softly, his eyes lingering on it, "it's the only thing I kept from my old life. Everything else, gone." Elon tilted his head, sensing a story. "What do you mean by old life? You don't seem like just another courier." The man leaned back against a nearby wall, removing his cap to reveal thin wisps of gray hair. He rubbed a calloused hand over his face as if the act might smooth away years of fatigue. Then he began to speak. "My name's Victor Harrington. Once upon a time, I wasn't out here lugging boxes in the dead of night. I was an aerospace engineer, a damn good one if I say so myself." His voice carried a mixture of pride and pain, every word weighted with memory. Elon's brows lifted slightly. "Aerospace?" Victor nodded. "Spent decades designing components for spacecraft. I worked with cutting-edge propulsion systems that could change the world." He paused, a faint smile touching his lips. "Ever hear of the Delta X rocket prototype? That was my baby." "I know it," Elon said, genuinely intrigued. "Groundbreaking in its day. What happened?" The light in Victor's eyes dimmed. "The company went under before it could get off the ground. Funding dried up, and just like that, years of work, gone. I stayed in the field for a while, bouncing between jobs, but layoffs came fast and hard. The economy wasn't kind to engineers my age." Elon nodded, familiar with the relentless pace of innovation, and the human costs it left in its wake. Victor's voice grew quieter, more strained. "I tried teaching after that, inspiring kids to dream big, to believe in space travel and exploration. They were my joy. But after my wife got sick," his voice cracked and he swallowed hard. "Medical bills don't pay themselves, you know. I took any job I could find just to keep us afloat. Eventually, even she was gone, and all I had left were debts and this medallion, a keepsake from the day we finished the Delta X design. Elon's gaze softened. He could see the weight of a lifetime etched into every line on Victor's face. And now you're here. Working late nights, why? Victor looked away, his hands trembling slightly as they tightened around the straps of his backpack. I promised myself one thing when my wife passed, that I wouldn't let all those years of work, of sacrifice, go to waste. I'm saving every dime I make now to finish what I started back then. It might take me the rest of my life, but I'll do it. I have to. Elon studied him in silence, admiration flickering in his eyes. The sheer determination, the grit, it was all too familiar. But before he could respond, the stillness of the night shattered. Elon's phone buzzed loudly, its insistent ring slicing through the moment. He pulled it from his pocket, glancing at the caller ID, an urgent call from his senior team at SpaceX. He glanced back at Victor, torn. His thumb hovered over the phone's screen as the old man's gaze shifted to the medallion still in Elon's hand. Looks like you've got somewhere more important to be, Victor said quietly, his voice tinged with resignation. Don't let me keep you. Elon hesitated, his hand frozen. The man's story deserved his time, but his company demanded it. What would he choose? Chapter 3, Elon Musk's offer. Elon glanced at the glowing screen of his phone, its insistent vibration demanding attention. For a moment, it felt as though the world hung in the balance. But then, with a firm swipe of his thumb, he silenced the call and slid the phone back into his pocket. Victor blinked, clearly taken aback. That sounded important. It was, Elon admitted, folding his arms and leaning casually against a street lamp, but this seems more important right now. He gestured at the medallion, still in his hand. So, let me get this straight. You're out here working these grueling hours, saving every penny to finish a project from decades ago. A project the world abandoned? Victor shifted uneasily, his face flush with a mix of pride and embarrassment. That's about the gist of it. But I'm not looking for anyone's pity if that's what you're thinking. Elon smiled faintly. Pity? No. Respect? Definitely. The words caught Victor off guard. He studied Elon for a moment as if trying to decide whether he was being mocked, but the sincerity in Musk's expression disarmed him. What do you want from me? Victor asked, his voice low, almost wary. I'm fascinated, Elon said. You don't see many people these days who'd sacrifice as much as you have for a dream, especially one that's not guaranteed to succeed. And honestly, he added, holding up the medallion, this design looks ahead of its time. I want to know more about it. About you? Victor hesitated, the weight of his weariness visible in the way he rubbed his temples. Talking about it doesn't change my reality. What good would that do? Elon's gaze sharpened. Maybe more than you think. For the next hour, the two men sat on a low wall under the streetlight, the city sleeping around them. Victor recounted his design work for the Delta X rocket, going into greater detail about the propulsion systems and the challenges he'd faced. Elon asked questions, real ones, intelligent and probing, that left no doubt he was listening. Gradually, Victor opened up about the human side of the story, the sleepless nights, the team of idealistic engineers who had believed they'd change the world, and the crushing disappointment when funding dried up. Elon nodded at all of it, absorbing every detail. Finally, the conversation circled back to the present. I've been ridiculed before, Victor admitted. People tell me I'm crazy for clinging to this dream at my age. Maybe they're right. Elon shook his head. Crazy? No. Visionary? Yes. But visions don't come to life without the right platform. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes gleaming with the intensity of an idea forming. Tell me, Victor. If you had a shot at making this real, would you take it? Victor frowned. A shot? What kind of shot? An opportunity, Elon said, his tone deliberately vague. No handouts, no charity, just a chance to bring your skills back into the light where they belong. Would you take it? Victor narrowed his eyes, suspicion creeping back into his voice. I've been around long enough to know opportunities often come with strings attached. What's the catch? No catch, Elon said smoothly, pulling a notepad and pen from his jacket pocket. Only this, if I gave you the chance, you'd have to believe in yourself as much as I do right now. Victor looked at the notepad, unsure of what to say. Elon began scribbling something quickly, his hand moving with confident precision. As he finished, he tore the paper from the pad and folded it, tucking it into Victor's hand. You'll get a message soon, Elon said, his expression unreadable. Trust me. Victor opened his mouth to protest, But before he could say anything, Elon stood and stepped back, his Tesla's headlights flickering on in the distance. "You really believe in second chances?" Victor finally managed to ask. "Not just in second chances," Elon replied as he turned toward his car. "I believe in making things happen." With that, he was gone, leaving Victor holding the folded piece of paper and staring after the car. His hands trembled slightly as he looked down at it, unsure whether to open it now or wait. Somewhere deep inside, though, he knew his life was about to change in ways he couldn't yet imagine. Chapter 4: The Reveal. The soft chime of Victor's phone roused him from sleep, the pale light of dawn filtering through the thin curtains of his modest apartment. Blinking away the remnants of fatigue from the previous night, he fumbled for his phone on the nightstand. For a moment he thought it must be a prank or a spam message. His finger hovered above the screen, reluctant to open it. But curiosity won and he tapped it. The email began with a casual yet unmistakable tone of familiarity. "Victor. We talked last night. I couldn't stop thinking about what you shared and the fire in your story. It turns out you're the kind of person I've been looking for. There's a team I want you to meet. They're working on something I think you'll find familiar. Check your inbox for further instructions and don't be late." No signature, no specifics, just a tantalizing thread of possibility. Victor stared at the message, a cocktail of skepticism and hope swirling in his chest. Was this real? He pinched himself for good measure before noticing a second email had just arrived. "Your invitation to SpaceX HQ." The second email held more details. An invitation to a private meeting with a team of SpaceX engineers, complete with an itinerary, travel arrangements, and instructions. His flight to Hawthorne, California, was scheduled for that afternoon. Victor clutched his phone tightly, his heart pounding. It felt surreal. Why would Elon Musk, a billionaire with his hands in electric vehicles, space travel, and neural interfaces, care about an old aerospace engineer whose prime years had slipped into obscurity? His medallion glimmered faintly in the morning light, a quiet reminder of dreams thought lost. Hours later, Victor stood in the cavernous halls of SpaceX headquarters. The clean lines of the facility, the cutting-edge equipment, and the palpable hum of innovation all took his breath away. He was ushered into a sleek conference room where a team of engineers waited, laptops open, schematic displays lighting the room. "You must be Victor Harrington," one of them greeted him, shaking his hand warmly. Elon entered moments later, exuding energy despite the relentless pace he kept. He carried no air of arrogance, only focus. "Victor," he said, clapping the man on the shoulder, "let's get to it." Over the next hour, Victor watched in awe as Elon and the team unveiled their plans for a new type of reusable spacecraft. As they spoke, Victor noticed something startling. The propulsion designs being discussed bore striking similarities to his long-abandoned Delta X rocket concepts. "Wait," Victor interjected, leaning forward. This design here, it's based on the principles we were exploring back in the day." "Who?" Elon smiled. "You did, Victor. You just didn't finish it yet. But I think you can help us do it now." Victor blinked, struggling to process the scope of what he was hearing. Elon continued, his tone light but purposeful. "The medallion, your story, it all proves you've still got it. And more than that, we need your expertise. Reusable spacecraft propulsion systems are the future, and we're bringing your vision to life." The team explained how they had unearthed technical documents, patents, and old design ideas linked to Victor's work and incorporated his foundational innovations into their next-generation rockets. For the first time in decades, Victor felt a surge of pride and purpose coursing through him. The tears that threatened his composure were ones of joy and disbelief. Why would you do this for me?" he finally asked Elon, his voice trembling. Elon shrugged. "It's not about doing this for you. It's about doing it with you. You've earned your place here, Victor. All I'm doing is opening the door." As the meeting concluded, Elon led Victor to another part of the facility, a massive hangar where a nearly completed rocket gleamed under powerful overhead lights. Its name, the Pioneer, was painted along its side. "That name," Victor whispered. "Fitting, isn't it?" Elon replied, his tone soft. "We're going to launch it next month and I'd like you to be there. Not just as a guest but as part of the team." Victor froze, overwhelmed by the offer. He could picture it all, the roar of engines, the crowd, the launch itself. But deep inside, a flicker of doubt and fear emerged. "I don't know," he said after a moment. Elon turned to him, surprised. "What do you mean?" Victor looked at his hands, worn and calloused. "I've been out of the game for too long. What if I let you down?" "Victor," Elon said firmly, "you've already done the hard part, holding on to your vision when the world tried to take it away. You're here because we believe in you. Now the question is, do you believe in yourself? The old man stood silent, his mind a whirlwind of emotions as he stared at the rocket in front of him. A single question loomed: would he step back into the fire or let the opportunity slip away? Chapter 5. The Big Payoff. The day of the launch had arrived, and Victor Harrington stood on the viewing platform, gazing at the gleaming rocket named the Pioneer. It towered over the surrounding structures at SpaceX, its polished body reflecting the fiery oranges and reds of the sunrise. The crowd around him buzzed with excitement. Engineers, journalists, and enthusiasts all eagerly anticipating the historic moment. Victor's heart raced, his palms damp with nervous energy. He hadn't felt this kind of anticipation since his younger days, presenting bold ideas to skeptical investors. This time, though, the stakes were even higher. This time his name was written in the stars. Elon told me you'd be nervous. A young engineer smiled as she handed him a headset and motioned for him to put it on. He also said to remind you that none of this happens without your contributions. Victor hesitated before slipping on the headset. He still struggled to accept the magnitude of his new reality. In the weeks leading up to today, Elon had not only brought Victor on board as an honorary team advisor but had gone a step further. The medallion Victor had carried all these years was incorporated into the Pioneer's onboard systems, a symbolic nod to the visionary man who had sparked the concept decades earlier. As the countdown began, Elon Musk approached Victor quietly, dressed casually in his signature black t-shirt and jeans. "You made it," Elon said, a grin spreading across his face. "How does it feel?" Victor took a deep breath, unable to hide his emotions. "It feels surreal. I never thought I'd stand here, let alone with people calling me a pioneer." Elon chuckled. "Well, you are one. You always were, Victor. This launch is about more than propulsion systems or advanced engineering. It's about reminding the world of the importance of perseverance. You taught us that." Elon stepped aside, directing Victor's attention to the giant monitor nearby. "Also, I have something to share before we hit zero." On screen, a montage began to play. It showed Victor's old sketches and designs, photographs of the Delta X project, and even clips from the oral histories Elon's team had collected from Victor's former colleagues. Interwoven were scenes of underprivileged students in a newly established STEM education center named in Victor's honor, the Harrington Institute for Aerospace Education. Victor's jaw dropped, his eyes welling with tears. What is this?" Elon placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your legacy, Victor. This isn't just about rockets or launches, it's about inspiring the next generation to dream as big as you did. The institute has already enrolled over 100 students. Some of your old colleagues are on the board, and every one of them insisted it be named after you." For a long moment, Victor couldn't speak. His trembling hands gripped the railing, his eyes fixed on the screen as students, many from marginalized communities, beamed with excitement in their state-of-the-art classrooms. "You're changing lives," Elon said. "We are together." The final moments of the countdown echoed through the air. 10, 9, 8. Victor looked out at the rocket one last time, his spirit soaring with the thrill of purpose regained. 3, 2, 1. With a deafening roar, the Pioneer lifted off the ground, its engines illuminating the platform below with brilliant flames. The rocket climbed steadily, carrying with it years of hope, sacrifice, and dreams thought forgotten. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Victor was silent. He stared at the ascending rocket with an expression of awe and pride, knowing that a piece of his soul was flying into the heavens. Hours later, during the celebratory event, Elon stood to give a brief speech. Instead of focusing on himself or the company, he directed the spotlight squarely on Victor. "This man," Elon said, gesturing toward Victor, "reminds us that no matter how many years pass, brilliance, determination, and passion never truly fade. All they need is a spark." The applause was thunderous. Victor, though humbled, stood tall as he addressed the crowd. "Dreams don't expire," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion choking him. "They just wait for the right conditions to take flight. If someone like me can reach the stars again, anyone can." That evening, as the festivities wound down, Victor lingered at the Institute's newly unveiled plaque. Read. Dedicated to Victor Harrington, a true visionary who taught the world to dream beyond limits. For the first time in years, Victor smiled fully, content in the knowledge that his second chance had not only brought his own dreams to life but had ignited countless others in the process. Chapter 6. Reflection and Impact. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over SpaceX's sprawling headquarters. Victor Harrington stood on the balcony, gazing at the distant streak of the Pioneer's fading trail. His journey, like the rockets, had taken him from earthbound struggles to unimaginable heights. Beside him, Elon Musk leaned on the railing, his posture uncharacteristically relaxed. The usual air of unrelenting ambition surrounding the billionaire seemed softened. "Funny, isn't it?" Elon began, his voice low but thoughtful. "We spend so much time thinking about the future, about going faster, farther, but sometimes we need to stop and remember the people who built the foundation we're standing on." Victor smiled faintly, the weight of the moment settling in. "And sometimes those people feel forgotten," he replied. "Until someone like you reminds them they still matter." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, the glow of the setting sun blending with the cool light of the stars emerging above. For Elon, the encounter with Victor had been transformative. In the rush to innovate, he realized he had sometimes overlooked the importance of honoring the past. Meeting Victor was a reminder that the path forward didn't just belong to the bold, it also belonged to those who had quietly paved the way with resilience and brilliance. As the weeks passed, news of Victor's story and his role in the pioneer's success rippled far beyond the aerospace industry. Articles celebrated his contributions, but the heart of the story lay in its broader impact. At the newly established Harrington Institute for Aerospace Education, enrollment skyrocketed. Young students, many from underserved communities, arrived with stars in their eyes, eager to learn and follow in Victor's footsteps. The institute's scholarships, funded quietly by Elon Musk, ensured that no dream was out of reach for those willing to pursue it. Social media lit up with stories inspired by Victor's tale. Posts tagged "Dreams Revived" trended for weeks, and discussions about mentorship and second chances found their way into boardrooms and classrooms alike. Across the world, people reflected on their own long-forgotten aspirations and found ways to rekindle them. In one of his rare reflective interviews, Elon Musk addressed the encounter directly.